I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com right there in the corner. And today we're talking about news. Today is episode number 138, but it's for May 18th, 2022. Let's just get into the news. The very first article is about a smartwatch. Huawei Watch GT3 Pro is a nice smartwatch many of us can't buy, according to this article. Last year, off to a good start. Last year, as Google and Samsung were upending the Android smartwatch space, Huawei also announced it was launching the Huawei Watch 3 on a new proprietary operating system called HarmonyOS 2. It then followed that up with the Huawei Watch GT3, so it's not a huge surprise that Huawei is back again with the Huawei Watch GT3 Pro. Let's go over to theverge.com, and Victoria Song is the author of this. So it looks like a regular mechanical watch, but it's a digital watch. It's pretty neat looking. I love the fidelity of it. I love the customization of it. It seems like it's a whole lot more, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing than the Apple Watch face. And when it's coupled in something like this, it says the all ceramic model is smaller at 43 millimeters. There's a 46.6 millimeter case as well. Now there's a 42.9 millimeter case. I just feel like like there's fundamental research and then it just gets copied. I can't get over it. Well, anyway, it says Huawei's, the article, by the way, again, is over at theverge.com by Victoria Song. And the article says here, it's a shame since Huawei's been in, because Huawei's in a weird space is what the author says. It's a shame since Huawei's been in the wearable space for a long time and made some excellent smartwatches along the way. I've been playing around with the titanium version of the GT3 Pro, and it's a nice smartwatch. Vivid display, absolute quickly, in the HarmonyOS 2. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I'm just sus. Feeling sus about that. Okay. The author says, but I can also tell that it has some of the same issues as when I tested the Huawei Watch 3. Namely, I can see the boons of a good smartwatch, but because of where I live, I can't make use of the best features. For instance, I can't use the voice assistant. That's because HarmonyOS 2 doesn't use Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, or Siri. It uses a proprietary assistant called Celia that requires you to have a Huawei phone, which I also can't buy. That's the author saying that. Yeah, because they're not allowed here. So in a nutshell, Huawei's watches are stuck in limbo. I could see plenty of people digging the watch's snappier performance, health tracking, and analog aesthetic, even if the third-party app ecosystem is non-existent. But at the same time, none of its watches are so revolutionary that it triggers FOMO, fear of missing out. At the end of the day, you're not missing that much. Yeah, really, the ecosystem is pretty important to a watch and the accoutrement of the device. So I guess be careful which walled garden you're going to land in. Because if everybody is a walled garden and your particular device is not a walled garden, guess what's a walled garden? Everybody. So let's continue on to the next article. The next article is in the Word and Tech channel. Liveness test or liveness tests used by banks to verify ID are extremely vulnerable to deepfake attacks. Security firm Sensity, which specializes in spotting attacks using AI-generated faces, probed the vulnerability of identity tests provided by 10 top vendors. Sensity used deepfakes to copy a target face onto an ID card to be scanned and then copied, and that same face onto a video stream of a would-be attacker in order to pass vendors' liveness tests or liveness tests. So it asks you to look into a camera on their phone or laptop, sometime turning the head or smiling or whatever, to make sure that you are alive, kind of like holding up a newspaper during a ransom. Attackers can simply swap their face for another, and that's the sophistication of computers and video and render engines now are so extremely sensitive that you can zoom in on a deep fake and it has the peach fuzz, and people will wonder, oh my gosh, people are hairy. That actually came about from a game that supposedly women don't have facial hair, but we all do, folks. I hate to break it to you. Anyway, this article is over at The Verge as well, and it's from James Vincent. And one of the channels that's over on ohmTown is Reality Hackers, which is all about basically creating things that are super realistic but fake. And you might have heard of a website called This Person Does Not Exist, which basically does deep fakes. And there's other programs that can take that single image and give it 3D dimensionality so it can slightly turn and blink and stuff like that. It's amazing what is out there right now. But Sensity specializes in spotting these AI generated faces. How they are going about it, I'm not sure the full extent by which they are doing this. But to some degree, the check needs to be a little bit deeper than just turning your head left or right. Mainly because we can now just kind of strap any face onto any face, and suddenly even turning your head would allow the right set of code to extrapolate even the side and back of somebody's head, and it would appear as being legitimately that person. And this was actually on an episode of not one episode, the last 2 or 3 episodes of NCIS LA here in the States. I don't know if it's everywhere. But basically, they were using deepfakes to pretend to be somebody else. Not just video deepfakes, but audio as well. People calling in, pretending to be somebody else. They sound like it, but they don't necessarily know all of the right protocols for communication. Well, you can't do that with complete strangers, which are nothing more than customers to your business. It's going to be really tough to verify ID without some serious security protocols in place, and no customer's going to follow that, at least not regular retail customers. So let's continue on to the next article. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. An ancient tooth found in a cave proves an extinct species of archaic humans lived in Southeast Asia over 130,000 years ago. A tooth found in a cave in Laos was found to be from an ancient human species called Denisovans. Well, we've known about Denisovans. Okay, well, maybe it's that they weren't in Asia. The tooth, most likely a girl's, places the extinct humans in Southeast Asia for the first time. This solves the mystery of how Denisovan genes are found in humans in Southeast Asia today. Remains of a now extinct ancient human species called Denisovans were found in Southeast Asia for the first time. Pretty fascinating, folks. Is that the real tooth? An artist's impression of a Denisovan next to a picture of the tooth found in Laos. You're kidding me. That's the actual tooth? Whoa. That is pretty trippy. That it survived this amount of time. It doesn't matter to me that it's found in a rock or something. I mean, it's just pretty amazing. Teeth are pretty durable, but it's seemingly not that durable, but apparently they are. That's really interesting. So go over to Business Insider and you can look at the tooth itself and the artist impression. Marianne, I think is Guinot, Guenot, is the author of the article, again, over at businessinsider.com. Let's see if there's anything a little bit deeper in this article. Let's see. The tooth was found in a cave site named Tam. I don't know how to pronounce that middle word. I don't think it's Nagu. I think it's just New. How to in Laos in 2018. The findings were published in the peer-reviewed journal Nature Communications on Tuesday. And then there's been remains only been found in 2 other locations. So it's a species of ancient human. I don't know. Have you seen the world today? I think maybe there's some subspecies still floating around in politics. Okay, well, scientists knew the ancient humans must have gone down as far as Southeast Asia, where they would have crossed paths with modern humans. A 2020 study found that a small number of Denisovan genes can be found in some populations in Southeast Asia. Neat. Let's see. This cave, where the first Denisovan remains were found in 2008, was likely inhabited by Denisovans about 300,000 years ago to about 50,000 years ago. It has taught us that these humans likely used stone tools, and they likely interbred with humans and Neanderthals. Some of those Neanderthals are still around. Okay, let's keep on moving. The next article is in Tabletop Nights, and it's a Loot River review. I won't do the whole review, obviously. It's not mine to do, but Loot River I had seen, and let's click the link. I'll just take you over to the site. Wow, what's going on here? I've never had this happen before. Let me cancel that and try it again. RP Gamer is the site. Well, it's in chat. I'll come back to it. Maybe they're having a hard time. I'll come back to that article if it loads. The next article, or I can talk about it. I guess I can talk about it. Oh, there it goes. So the review is over at rpgamer.com, and it's Loot River review. And this is actually pretty interesting in its mechanic, and you actually slide around on various platforms, and it's a Tetris style puzzler kind of a game, but not, because you are moving these Tetris shaped floating elements on a river, and you have to move them around in the right order to avoid people attacking you. You can attack back, but sometimes it takes some special maneuvering to get everything lined up so that you can progress through the map. And it's looks like it might be fun for some. Not my style of game, but I certainly don't pretend that my news is solely focused on what I like alone. I'm more about expanding people's awareness of things. And I think it's interesting. It has some mechanics in it that I thought were really interesting. But it says, in Loot River, players take on the role of a nameless adventurer who wakes up in the hub town of Sanctuary after being pulled from the brink of death into a mirror world to end its cycle of death and rebirth in an mirror world, or in the mirror world. The adventurer ventures forth dutifully into the catacombs, then to take down the enemies and bosses within. Okay, so Ryan Costa is the author of this review over at RP Gamer. Let's continue on to the next article. The next article is 10 Things in Tech, the Next Silicon Valley. I'm just going to click the link because it's talking about places. This is a Business Insider article written by Jordan Parker Erb. It says, Happy Wednesday, folks. Today we're wondering whether Miami can really make it as the next Silicon Valley, and giving you a look at the Ford F-150's Lightning's best feature. Wow. Doing two things, a 1-2 punch. So it says, can Miami really hack it as the next Silicon Valley? No, I don't think so. The city memed itself into America's newest tech utopia, but as the industry's future wavers, many are beginning to wonder if Miami could actually thrive as a globally competitive tech hub. Plenty of towns. The city's benefited from a crypto-loving mayor. I'm not sure why that makes a difference. But now the Magic City is facing a reckoning. Make real change or end up a cautionary tale about what happens when you place all your bets on a bubble. Pardon me. I had to cough. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Weather's nice. Hurricanes suck. It has some interesting policy in place, and it's taking swipes at pretty much anything liberal. So I don't know. I really don't. I don't see it being. I mean, if Silicon Valley goes over to Florida in any substantial way, you can bet that it's going to turn more liberal. So let's see what happens, folks. Move to Miami. Everybody move to Florida. And not necessarily Miami. Treat it as the diaspora, kind of spread out everywhere. The next article is over in the Smack Talk channel. I'll just keep on moving forward. And this is Apple reinstates retail employee mask mandate at about 100 U.S. stores. Apple is reinstating its mask mandate for retail employees at about 100 brick and mortar locations throughout the U.S. in response to a national rise in cases. Yep, because we can't have nice things, folks. Mike Peterson is the author of this article over at appleinsider.com. And it says, news of the employee mask mandate comes after Apple partially postponed a return to office basically a return to office order. The company on Tuesday told staffers they could work in office twice a week instead of 3. There's a lot of places that are doing exactly that. 2 days a week at most. Obviously, if you want to come in more often, you can do it. But most office places now that have a telework policy are allowing only 2 days, which is great. I think the networking aspect of checking in on Wednesday is great. But I'm not interested in returning to the office full time. I'm always available, imminently available wherever I am, because I always have everything right here. I don't have to run to another location for a meeting and drop everything, and it takes time there. I don't have to drive to work anymore. This is the better way, and everybody who has a white-collar job can do it. You don't need to show up for work because you can still get your job done. Anyway, the U.S. is seeing a steady rise in COVID-19 cases driven by more infectious subvariants of the Omicron variant like BA2, BA212, and BA2121212121212 and 2. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, and it is 11 hidden Gmail features every user should know. And this is actually kind of old school, but when this popped up in my feed, I figured I'd kind of reinforce it, not just talk about it real quick. So if you're not a power user on Gmail, get into it. There are people that I know that have hundreds of thousands of messages sitting in their Gmail account, and they haven't touched them. And you really should use some tools to eliminate all of that. Filter the noise out. Make Google's mail filtering systems better by showing them what you really want, because there is an algorithm that's analyzing everything that you're doing and feeding you ads and filtering things this way and that way. So take advantage of it, folks. Work smarter, not harder. This is a businessinsider.com article as well from Dave Johnson. 11 hidden Gmail features every user should know. Let's see if I can get through them. Yeah, they do this article like they do other articles, which is kind of a little block of text, and then there's some dead air in between. Might be an ad or something, but anyway, pack more into your Gmail inbox. Oh, you can change its format to make it compact or comfortable or default. Default has everything available right there, attachments and things like that. Using Outlook like reading pane, which if you use Outlook, there is like a mailbox pane and folders and whatnot, and then there's a list of all of your mail, and then there's a reading pane so that you can actually read the email when you click on it. Some people use that. I use that, but I don't use Gmail all that much in the web interface anymore. I use the app or Apple Mail. So the reading pane is kind of always there, ever present. Schedule email so no one knows you're working at midnight. Yeah, I'm usually up until about 2 o'clock, so I'm answering mail anyway. Snooze a conversation you don't want to deal with right now. Yeah, I just leave it unread. Customize your email address. Yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with your email. So if your email address is first last name at gmail.com, you can turn it into first period last name at gmail.com when an organization requests your email address. And you can also use pluses in between things. Whatever your real name is, you need to do your name or whatever the account really is, and then plus, and then some designation. So I know who spams me because there's this plus designation, and they won't necessarily risk removing it because it might be filtered automatically. Like if I always use tags in my email address when I sign up for something, if I use plus something and it's the priority one, then it'll be my account name plus and then the priority code. And if your business doesn't have the priority code, then you end up in the trash. Use confidential mode to limit the life of an email. That doesn't matter. I mean, you can use it, but it's not going to matter. I can always take a picture of it and I have it forever. So that doesn't really matter to me. Probably doesn't. You should be aware of it for you too if you're going to use confidential. And maybe somebody won't be able to exploit it. Translate email. When you're viewing a message's content, click the 3-dot menu at the top right, choose translate message, and you should immediately see the contents appear in English. You can recall emails for up to 30 seconds after you click send. No. Well, maybe. Maybe if they lag the sending of the actual email by 30 seconds. But once it leaves the server, you can't get it back. That just doesn't happen. But you can use it because they actually have a code in their mail service to stop, not send mail for 30 seconds, I suppose. Or it's tagged based on what your setting is. But like I said, once it's left the Gmail network, you're not getting that email back. Write faster with Gmail's writing suggestions. Yeah, it can just add stuff as you type. Easily save attachments to Google Drive. Yep, you can save to other drives as well. Make subfolders to organize your Gmail. Yep, and then filter stuff into those folders, which if you are kind of one of those nightmare email users where you have 115,000 emails, yeah. Let's get into the next article. Dun, dun, dun. Target shares sink 25% after company says high costs, inventory woes hit profits. This is in the Hatch Ideas channel because it's about business. Let's just click the link and go over to the article. Today's going to be a short episode. This article is over at CNBC by Melissa Repko. And with all things, fuel is the reason why prices are going up. That is the bargain bin statement from me that the reason why there is inflation right now is because of gas prices. And then people are trying to recover their losses on top of the increase in gas prices because you can't get anything from anywhere to anywhere without those prices, without gas, and the prices get piled on layer after layer. So people aren't letting their margins get hit. They are just straight on passing the cost and adding their own juice. So what starts out as a 15% price increase because of gas prices increasing ends up being a 30% price increase by the time all the layers of the onion are peeled back. So it says Target shares dropped sharply on Wednesday after the company said its quarterly profits got hit by supply chain troubles, higher fuel costs, there we go, and lower than expected sales of discretionary merchandise. But in some places you're still limited by the number of toilet paper rolls you can purchase. The big box retailer said it saw a healthy customer. The big box retailer said it saw a healthy customer, but a shift to experience-based purchases such as toys for birthday parties and luggage for trips. Yeah, okay. Interesting. So earnings per share $2.19 adjusted versus $3.07 expected. Revenue was $25.17 billion versus $24.49 billion expected. So they made more money in revenue. Lost earnings per share though. Okay. Sales did grow compared to that year ago period. Comparable sales, a key metric that tracks sales at stores open at least 13 months. Really? And online grew 3.3% in the first quarter. That is on top of a 23% increase in comparable sales in the year ago quarter, and it is higher than Wall Street's projections for 0.8% according to street account estimates. And traffic rose, so they made more money again, even in the face of higher costs. They still made money, and their shares sank probably because people are getting out of the retail side of investment because prices are going up. They're getting cash. The next article is in Hatch Ideas. EV battery costs could spike 22% by 2026 as raw material shortages drag on. That's because the raw materials are in areas of conflict. eSource estimates battery cell prices will surge 22% from 2023 to 2026, peaking at $138 per kilowatt hour, which will completely ruin the EV market. So translating a battery increase of 22% means that by the time it reaches the full price of the vehicle, you're going to see probably 45 to 50% price increases because everybody has to take a bite of the apple, even though all they're doing is getting more expensive raw materials, and your margins have to be higher every year. But don't get me started. Let's see. The cost to produce electric vehicles is primed to surge over the next 4 years, according to a new report. But everything is surging. So why is anything surging? If everything is surging, why is anything surging? The spike is a result of scarcity in key raw materials needed to make EV batteries, primarily lithium. But there are other like key components that have rare earth minerals, rare earth metals that are needed within the architecture of batteries. This is an article over at CNBC. Phil LeBeau is the author. But it's, makes you wonder why all of a sudden this is happening. But the declines won't last much beyond that. eSource estimates battery cell prices will surge 22%, peaking at 138 per kilowatt hour before they resume a steady decline through 2031, possibly as low as $90 per kilowatt hour. So if you're already predicting it, then the pricing is already anticipating it. And if you know a decade out that it's going to be declining, what's the rationale here? The stock market and futures is supposed to level the velocity of increases and decreases. It's supposed to stem these irrational swings, but that's not what the market is doing. If you look at the price of oil, since OPEC was created, the pricing spiked, and now over the last 30 years, it's been going up and down with the frequency of a cheap ham radio. It's wildly out of line with what the philosophy of the stock market is supposed to be. Yet, in the years prior to the creation of OPEC and trading of oil on the stock market with companies and investors, the money was, or the value of oil was sub $40 a barrel. I think one of the prices that I saw was something like $16 or $20 a barrel, which was one of the reasons why OPEC, or I should say the reason OPEC was created, was to try and conspire to raise prices so that oil was enriching the producers, those particular producers. Okay, so let's continue on to the next article. This is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Dow drops 400 points, its first decline in 4 days as companies warn of rising costs. I'm not sure why this should be a surprise to anybody. The stock market is largely a lot of money chasing a lot of money until everybody else balks, and then those that have money are buying the remnants of whatever wasn't purchased, on top of driving the prices up for investing. And so it's a continuation of the concentration of wealth into the haves from the have-nots, and less opportunity for everybody else. Yeah. If you're making $300,000 a year, you are not in the have-not category. You are already in the upper class, and not in the lower upper class. You're in the upper class, and the upper economic class. You may decide that you want to live in a van down by the river, but if you're making $350,000 or something like that, you are in the upper class. That's why billionaires are outrageous, because billionaires now own 75%, and I don't know what the real thing is, what the real number is. I'm sure I can find it, but they own everything, and the middle class owns just a little slice, and we're fighting amongst ourselves, trying to not get our necks stepped on by police, or 70-year-olds with dementia getting handcuffed, or running around trying to hurt each other. Meanwhile, there are people that are making bank off of making bank. Anyway, this article is over at cnbc.com by Sarah Min and Jesse Pound. It actually, since the time I pulled this, it tumbled 800 points as more selling came on in Target and Walmart are impacted. Let's see what it really is right now. Okay, so it is down 952 as of 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. It depends on where you are. So If you're on the East Coast, it's I think 1 o'clock. Anyway, the market's getting kind of pummeled, and people are starting to liquidate their assets so that they can no longer take a hit. And year to date, the market is down close to 5,000. The Dow is. So be aware of your investments, folks. We are trending towards recession. So, yeah. Just be aware. The next article is in the Constructagon. It's a 3D printing channel that I would like to bring to Twitch and to YouTube. What is multi-jet 3D printing? So most people are familiar with 3D printing technologies that use filaments or photopolymer resin. These have become fairly common among hobbyists and even small businesses. However, there are also 3D printing technologies that are more appropriate for professional or industrial applications. One such example is multi-jet fusion. This technology that is really rarely used but is well known as being superior in many other 3D printing methods in terms of resolution, consistency, surface quality, and material options. So how does it work and what makes it so special? We'll click the link and go over to 3D Insider. And so how does it work? I want to read a little bit of the article. Application of the binding agent alone is not enough to cause the formation of layers from the powder bed. Rather, the binding agent primary purpose is to promote the absorption of infrared energy. After jetting of the agent, infrared light passes over the surface of the bed. The agent captures the energy from the infrared light and distributes it evenly across the powder particles. When the build is finished, the entire box is removed from the printer so that the finished part can be extracted. And if you've never seen these powder-based 3D printers, it's quite intriguing. There's different formats for it, but the resolution is superior pretty much in all ways, except for the fact that it actually has a lot of empty space in it. So depending on how it is put together, regardless of how fine grain it is, you have to seal it. Otherwise, it can absorb moisture. And it can be cured, so it's much more solid. But the level of resolution is really incumbent on how fine that powder is. And that has changed over the years, decades that tech has been in existence. But it's just messier. You have to deal with the powder, and you have to make sure that you don't, if you drop this thing, the box of powder, you're basically done for. But it all depends on how it is. And they say it can be compared to laser sintering, which if you've never heard of laser sintering, it's basically a fine metal powder is laid down like an FDM printer, except that there is a laser that spot welds that, or an arc that spot welds that metal in place. And some really amazing things can be printed. It tends to be grainy, and then you have to do final sanding, what amounts to sanding, which can impact the final dimensions quite a bit. So really interesting technologies. A similar MJF process. I wanted a printer for a game that I was designing, but it was a $65,000 printer. And so I didn't get it, but that's largely because I don't have backers. I don't have followers. I don't have investors. I don't have anything really that can support these prototyping efforts. And as of late, I'm risk averse. So that project will have to be on hold. But it's a game that I want to bring to market. Anyway, really neat technologies. If you want to know more about it, go over to 3dinsider.com. It's an article by Joseph Flint. And I think that you'll dig it. It is an article from April 5th, but it was updated in some way. The next article is in Constructagon as well. I had been looking at 3D printer stuff, and so it kind of made me think, hey, let's throw some stuff into today's news about 3D printing. One of the many benefits that is often associated with 3D printing is that you have the ability to 3D print a thing that you otherwise would have bought from the store. So I have pondered this time and time again. When is it more practical to print something? Because I've got 3D printers. So is it more practical to print something, or is it more practical to go and buy something? And it's really all about opportunity cost. So we're going to click the link because in all cases that I have ever seen, printing something is cheaper. Why? Because I don't have to spend money because I've already spent the money on filament. Now, the opportunity cost is really where it's all at, because I can set my printer to print anything I want that's 3D modeled. Well, if my time waiting for that item is cheaper than going to the store and just buying it, then I will 3D print it. That said, if I have to pay somebody to model something so that I can print it, it may not be cheaper, but it might be faster. And depending on what I call my opportunity cost for said item, whatever it might be, if my opportunity cost is lower than me going out and getting it or having it special ordered, then I will 3D print it. But if I need it fast, regardless of expense, regardless of opportunity cost, I will spend the money to get the item. Like I had something made that was really, well, not really expensive. It depends on your perception of really expensive. But it was designed to allow me to wrap something extremely hot around something that I could remove without cutting or damaging what it is, right? I have to be cagey about it because I can't reveal what the product was. Anyway, the objective was to create something that was contiguous, but the only way to do it was to make something that could collapse and be removed from supporting this product. Oh God, I'm painting myself into a corner with this. Anyway, so it would be cheaper for me to do it that way than to 3D print, because I couldn't get the resolution. It would take a really long time, and the physics of it really would require this unique device versus 3D printing. So really, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And this article talks about the more practical side of it. When is it practical to 3D print? It doesn't really go into the opportunity cost, calling it as such, but it says what the volume is, the time and effort, material limitations, design limitations, special cases, and they have final thoughts. So beyond just a hobby, 3D printing could actually turn out to be a useful technology to have around the house. If a part breaks off a dishwasher, you might be able to 3D print a replacement in just a few hours. This is certainly easier than having to call up the manufacturer and possibly receive a replacement part in a week or two. I agree. But wholly, it is about opportunity cost, which includes special cases, design limitations, material limitations, time and effort, and volume. So like I want to print a helmet, and it won't fit in 2 of my 3D printers. So what is the additional opportunity cost for tying up that larger 3D printer for that one item when I could be printing 150 items inside that same build volume? So again, it's all about opportunity cost. So start accounting for everything. Build a spreadsheet. Go over to this article and grab the headline, the titles for the little sections of what go into the cost, and consider all things as opportunity cost, because you shouldn't leave your 3D printer just laying around while it's printing. You need to keep an eye on it. because it can catch fire and burn your house down. And if the fire starts in your basement, it's even worse because it's going to burn the whole thing down into your basement. Okay, next article. Last of the two. We'll be right on time, I think. I'll be done early, as a matter of fact. But let's get into this. The last two articles. This is in the Daily News Show, which is the show. And EU rushes out $300 billion roadmap to ditch Russian energy just in time for battery tech to start ramping up pricing. Oh, it's just amazing. There's nothing predatory about this. Not to mention, all of the conflict areas that have the rare minerals are being hoarded. But I guess, if it was one country or another, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's going to hoard whatever they can. And, we're just going to have to keep on consuming and find alternative resources for all of these things. That's what fundamental research is. So you can't be anti-intellectual. You can't be anti-education. You can't be anti-fundamental research. You can't be anti-progressive. You have to be looking forward because there is nothing else after oil except what we have developed as human beings to replace it, which happens to be electricity in one form or another, or generated in one form or another, with wind energy being a viable source, but wholly not defensible. Solar, again, viable, but if everybody hates each other, that's not defensible. Geothermal, not defensible, and not everything is suitable for it. You'd have to do some serious engineering to exploit geothermal. And now with drought in various places, hydropower isn't necessarily a functioning power generation now. So where do you end up? You end up in another largely rare but extremely defensible and very protected process called nuclear power. Oh, look at that. So we're back to nuclear, which you can't drive around in a nuclear powered car, but you can in an electric car that may or may not cost $25,000 more because the battery sucks and has to be replaced. Anyway, that's a side thing, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox today, but let's just say that people are trying to get away from oil because it's coming from places that aren't necessarily friendly. And it's kind of like giving a hug to your bully. It's not going to last forever, folks, and they're going to bully you again. So let me pause this when it pops up. EU rushes out $300 billion roadmap to ditch Russian energy. The European Union's executive arm is moving to jumpstart plans for the EU to abandon Russian energy amid the Kremlin's war on Ukraine. This is from the Associated Press. It's aggregated from abcnews.go.com. I don't know why they're on go.com. They must own go.com. I just don't recall it. Anyway, quote, "We are taking our ambition to yet another level to make sure that we become independent from Russian fossil fuels as quickly as possible," European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in Brussels when announcing the package dubbed Repower EU. Anybody that goes up against Russia tends to have, an accelerated deceleration problem, or their meal doesn't agree with them and they, whatever. Anyway, and I don't think that things are being done rationally. So it says the European Commission said the price tag for abandoning Russian fossil fuels completely by 2027 target date is 210 billion euros. Its package includes 56 billion euros for energy efficiency and 86 billion euros for renewables. keep on spending that money on fundamental research, folks. And just so that nobody thinks different of me, I am not in fundamental research. That is not my domain. I'm just interested in tech. I would promote it if I was given the opportunity to be the spokesperson for fundamental research online. And so I'm cheerleading it here from ohmTown. And I think that everybody should be very supportive of fundamental research. Okay, last article for today is in the Daily News Show. U.S. bank unveil plan to ease food crisis from Russia's war. Dun-dun-dun. This is the last article, folks, for today. I'll be here tomorrow doing ohmTown Daily News Show again. Again, it's flexible because I've got things in the morning and in the afternoon, and so it's pushing my desired time of 11 o'clock around. I had everything set up to do this and stream more starting Monday, and it just got destroyed. At any rate, ahead of the G7 finance ministers meeting, the U.S. Treasury, several global development banks, and other groups have unveiled a multi-billion-dollar plan to meet meant to address the worldwide food security crisis exacerbated by Russia's war in Ukraine. So there was already a food crisis that was brewing, and then India turned off the export tap of wheat, sending wheat prices skyrocketing. Let me see where wheat is now. Let me see. So it is higher now than the U.S. recession in 2008. So it's at over $12.77 as of yesterday. So my data is a little lagged. I don't have immediate data. So it's from yesterday. Right? Let me see. Let me make sure. Yeah. So let's click the link. It takes us over to abcnews.go.com. Article by Fatima Hussein from Associated Press. So it says, ahead of the G7 finance ministers meeting, the U.S. Treasury, several global development banks and other groups have unveiled this multi-billion-dollar plan. And working swiftly to bring to bear their financing, policy engagement, and technical assistance to prevent starvation prompted by the war, rising food costs, and climate damage to crops. Heck, and with the congressional hearing yesterday about UFOs, maybe we're going to have some UFOs landing in these wheat fields. Tens of billions will be spent on supporting farmers, addressing the fertilizer supply crisis, and developing land for food production, among other issues. The Asian Development Bank will contribute funds to feeding Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, and the African Development Bank will use $1.5 billion to assist 20 million African farmers, according to Treasury. Shortages of fuel and fertilizer in many countries and accelerating spikes in food prices threaten to destabilize fragile societies, increasing hunger and malnutrition, drive migration, and cause severe economic dislocation. Conflict has greatly exacerbated food security issues globally. Yep. If you want something that is sustainable, although you'll have to become a vegetarian, you can grow microgreens in your basement, and it is sustainable. You can survive. I've done it for a while. So, in an emergency, you can do quite a bit. That said, I never thought in my life that I would be saying that sentence. So, good luck to us all. I'll be covering the news tomorrow again. I'm not quite sure when, just to reiterate that. But you can always go to ohmTown.com, click on that front page, when you get there, if you go to ohmTown.com, it will populate. And periodically, you can go back to that front page after paging through page after page after page of headlines. Then come here tomorrow and we can talk about those headlines. And if you have a topic that you're interested in, you want to do a deep dive, I can even throw you up there, boom, 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 put up another window, and we can have a Zoom meeting or Discord, or pretty much anything you want. I mean, if you want something else, I'll set it up so that we can have a real-time chat, and we can go from there. Again, I am Mayor Watt. I'm the mayor of ohmTown. That's ohmTown.com, and the community here on Twitch and over on YouTube and the podcast. And I talk about business, society, and technology merging in what sometimes might appear as a train wreck. Okay. See you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.